Hey listener, welcome to 1000 Routes. I'm your host, Nick Bennett. In each episode, we explore the uncommon paths of solopreneurs who have bet on themselves and the reality of what it takes to build a business that serves your life. And if you want to change your own route, you can check out Full Stack Solopreneur, our 90-day group coaching program that has helped dozens build clear, compelling offers that you can market and sell with confidence. You can join now at fullstacksolo.com. That's fullstacksolo.com. Enjoy the episode.
I feel like I've been saying for the last year, it's a pretty busy time, kind of getting more and more comfortable with that level of busyness. Life is kind of changed in a weird way with, building an audience. I had so many years in business basically in obscurity, as a complete unknown, not on social at all. So it's been this weird shift to like speaking to people like yourself on a regular basis. And you've probably experienced this too. Like it's once you kind of find that momentum, it's easy to overcommit, and your whole day is either planning for being on podcasts or, I don't know, creating content. It's like there's endless opportunities to do this stuff, and you have to get maybe strategic about it, but also be mindful of energy levels and like real life stuff, family and client work. You can't just be constantly having chats, I guess. So yeah, I feel like I'm, talking to other creators, it's like it's a pretty normal thing that it feels like this sort of flood of opportunity opens up to you. And at first you don't handle it that well, and then you get good at knowing how to say yes, how to say no, how to pace yourself.
Well, if you don't protect your calendar, who will? I think that's the hardest part for me. Is like you look at the week ahead and you find that you say yes to so many things because you want to do that show or you want to collaborate, you want to catch up with that person. And when you say yes to all those things, you look back and you look at the week and you go, well, when am I going to write content? When am I going to follow up on that client thing that I committed to doing? So it's tough. I mean, for you too, you create an insane amount of content. When I first found you, you were slinging. Like carousels were the big thing. A lot of people have moved on from them, but you still do a lot of carousels. And you were slinging fresh carousels all the time. It's like, how do you generate such an insanely high volume of content? Like, what does your process look like?
You asked me that? Yeah. A lot of it is, reposting old stuff with a new face, so I'll give you an example. I have a whole system. So I have the system I call the Forever 50. And the best analogy I can think of is it's like when you go and see a band you love. What's a band you love?
Oh, I love this band out of Canada called Walk Off the Earth.
What's a band you love that I will know?
Oh my gosh. I don't, my children are under 3 years old, so I don't get to listen to music.
Okay.
So this is
imagine you go and see Metallica. And
cool.
When you go and see Metallica that they're going to play Enter Sandman, and they're going to play One. They're going to play the hits, and there'll be like 30 hits that they play over the course of the gig. And then the other thing that they might do is play 5 songs from the new album. I pretty much do that. When you are starting, it's really challenging because you have to literally show up with new shit as often as you can, which is really tough. And you're bad at creating content. You don't have any system. I have a lot of systems now that I have options. I have options for how to create content quickly and well. But that Forever 50, the whole idea is like about 20% of your content should be listed in your greatest hits, your 50 best posts, and you put those on rotate. And there are some people, like I think Justin Welsh probably would be the obvious one where, as far as I can tell, and I haven't followed his stuff really closely, but closely enough that I think he literally has about 100 posts on Spin Cycle, and they're all evergreen. So it's fine, and I completely get it too, that it makes sense to not force yourself to show up and essentially try and find a new way to say the same idea over and over, especially on LinkedIn. Something like YouTube, I think it's harder because apart from the amount of time per piece of content required, you kind of can't do that. You can't just keep posting the exact, not literally the same thing. You could do a video that covers the same ground. But yeah, anyway, with LinkedIn, I think the window that I kind of recommend for clients is leave it 4 months before reposting something. And you're going to give yourself so much space that nobody's going to mind. Even people who've seen it before. Some of the people have seen my stuff before and they'll go, oh, I really like this one. You know, this is a classic of yours, you know? So it's like, it's a greatest hit. So I mix that up. So I probably do, it's probably 60-40 now, even 70-30 of old to new, mostly old. And then I retire stuff too. Like if I have a post that I feel is, sometimes I kind of feel like I'm not really into it anymore. The one that springs to mind is my viral post, which was LinkedIn Secrets of the Algorithm, which I did in 2022. And I gained 10,000 followers overnight, literally, with that one. I went from...
That might be the post that
Yeah. Often I'll see when people start following, it's November 2022. So it's that post. I mean, there's a few reasons, but the main reason I stopped posting that kind of stuff is I think it's completely the wrong approach. You know, like now when I work with clients, we don't really talk about like, oh, you have to comment 20 times a day and you know, this is the best format for getting impressions and shit. It's like different people are going to have a different tempo of content. Some people are going to be great on video, but they hate writing. Some people are really experienced writers with a huge backlog of blog posts. You know, there's a lot of people, especially the kind of guru world, if you want to call it that, where there's this very prescribed, this is what you should do. Like you said, oh, you know, carousels, people aren't really doing that anymore. It's like, I do it because it works for me. I'm good at them. You know, Louis Butterfield just does videos and nothing else because it works for him. It'd be stupid for me to say, hey man, you should do carousels. Like they're great. You know, like the point being is that one is not really values aligned for me anymore. Now I'm all about how can you become somebody like Erica, where it's like really a unique voice that it doesn't really matter whether it's a video or a photo or what. It's this very Erica vibe. It's like, don't give a shit, very honest. She's got the twins, you know, and don't give a shit in a good way,
yeah.
Like not in a negative, everybody's terrible way, but like she's very real, you know, and that's good. That's good content to my mind on LinkedIn and on anything, but especially on LinkedIn. And as you know, like that leads to clients as well. That's the irony. When you stop all this algorithm bullshit, people go, hey, I really like your vibe, Erica. I'm going to pay you because there's so much trust from all your real stuff you've shared about the twins vomiting on you and stuff. I know that if I pay you, it's going to be what you said. It's not going to be this watered down, you know, I'm not going to get fobbed off to a team member and never even get to talk to you. And that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I jokingly tell her she's unapologetically Erica. Like that, we all need a little bit of unapologetically you in what you create. I was thinking about, so when we first met a couple weeks ago, I was thinking about how you are different than the content version of you in a really good way. And I was thinking about how you brought up, like Louis Butterfield does only videos. You don't do videos. I couldn't find a video of you. And I feel like that, like, is that a conscious decision, or is that just something you're like, you're not super into doing videos? I'm curious how you navigate that. Like, it's just writing. I mean, you were a singer and a songwriter and you wrote music for a long time. So I'd imagine that writing comes a little more naturally, but I'm curious how you think about
so the first instance I can remember of having a realization that writing could be something that I could kind of lean into in some way was when I was in my 20s. I went off to university and I was writing long emails home, as people did then, because, you know, it was a different time, early 2000s. It was like one step removed from sending a physical letter, you know. And I would write these emails and spend ages on them. And I would send them to friends and family. I might be sending them to 20 people, I don't know. And I would get all these nice responses of people going, you know, this is really nicely written. This was an unusually positive experience for me as the reader, I guess, was the message. And I didn't do anything with it at the time, but I think back at it now as a kind of a like, and the songwriting is part of it as well, that I like writing that connect. You know, I try and read as much as I can. My girlfriend she's a creator, and her niche is literary fiction. So we are big readers, you know, her especially, much more so than me. But I don't know, I probably read 30 books a year, something like that. Nothing crazy, but I'm trying to immerse myself in language, in good language, and to build the craft. You know, it's like, and the same thing happened to me with music, where you find this thing that you love, that you know you're pretty good at, but you want to get really good at it. And there's no end point. You know, you never go, great, I'm perfect at this now. I'm sure if you spoke to, you know, Stevie Wonder or Larry Carlton or James Hetfield from Metallica, you know, that they'll all be working on their craft. That's why they're so good. They're chasing this endless thing called be even better than you are. And that's what sustained me as a content creator too. Like I didn't make any money for the first year at least. It was never about that. It was all about the craft of writing, recognizing that I really enjoyed it, getting a lot of pleasure from it. Just like with songwriting, when you fall in love with the craft, ultimately you start creating pretty good stuff because you just keep showing up, chasing that better. So, you know, the other thing to mention is I am working with Louis to start creating videos. I want to create videos. I think it's a huge opportunity on LinkedIn that is, most people won't do it because it's hard. You have to get, you know, arguably you don't, but I would say you have to know a little bit about lighting, a little bit about cameras, and then editing, and then scripting, and then getting comfortable on camera, and so on and so on. It's not easy, right? It's like a much higher barrier to entry than writing. So that is attractive to me. It's a whole new craft. And I have to go back to the very start and go, I'm going to be terrible at this for a while, but there is huge value. You know, for me, it's about impact. It's like, how do I connect with as many people as possible and inspire them to, you know, live the lives they want to live. That's it. So whether that's through writing or video or speaking, that's just the medium. You know, I think writing has been something that I was pretty good at right from the start, but with video, I definitely won't be. And, you know, I've just been working on my course, and the hardest part of it in many ways was just getting on video and talking to a lens and going, man, I look weird. And, you know, I'm not comfortable with this. And I think it's going to come through as kind of moving weirdly because I'm in my head about it. I've since probably shot 40 or 50 lessons for this course. I've shot the whole course. And as time has gone on, eventually you just switch the camera on and you go, hey, this is what we're doing today. And you stop, you know, just like any creator that we enjoy watching on YouTube, they're not putting on a persona. They're just very much themselves. To your point about Erica, it's probably true of all content, right? That the more somebody really lets their own voice and their own self come through, the more some people will resonate with that.
There's so much here. I think you're 100% right, because having recorded like 1,000 Loom videos, even just trying to communicate something to a client, forget creating content for public consumption, like just to pop on Loom and create a video and try to communicate something. You watch it back and you're like, why am I moving like that? Why do I sound like that? Why do I and you become super self-conscious of it. And there's like, with all things, you are like horrible at it. Then you get consciously incompetent, and then you become more consciously competent of it. So I'm excited to see the videos that you produce. And I think there's two kinds, right? There's the stuff you're filming for the course, and I want to talk more about the course in a minute, but there's the stuff about the course, and then there's the stuff that you create to like publish out into the world. When do you think the first ones will start rolling out?
You know, someone who has really inspired me with video is Jacob Peggs. And it's not because his videos are so amazing. It's because they're so basic in terms of the production. So he literally shows up, and they've gotten better. Like, they've gotten a bit fancier as he's invested in better gear. But his early videos are like him literally talking to a laptop down here with bad audio for like 10 minutes. And it's great because he broke the seal, right? So now he's posting these videos, and he and I talked about it. And the really smart realization he had was that it was not about a quality production experience at all. It was about people hanging out with him. So if you watch 2 hours of his videos, which are really, really good, he gives you a lot of actionable stuff for free, as it were. Eventually you're like, I like hanging out with him. He's a cool dude. He's someone who I would enjoy hanging out with in real life. And this is the next best thing. And that's the point. And he explained that to me, that when you're spending time watching somebody's videos for several hours, the trust meter, if you like, goes through the roof, because again, like with Erica, you know what you're going to get. And then you do get it in real life. You get on a call with them, as I did with him, and it's exactly the same. There's no difference, and that's the point of it. So, to answer your question, I guess I'm trying to summon the courage to start doing that myself. I've done one or two where I share them with my newsletter subscribers, and I'm trying to just kind of make it a habit. I'm always refining my content systems, and I have to introduce a way to turn a post. Well, I guess my goal is to turn each post into a video as well. So say it's a carousel on LinkedIn. How can I do a video version, maybe with some slides? I don't know. Maybe just do it like Jacob does, where you're more or less talking to the camera in a pretty loose sort of format. But, if it was a client of mine, I'd be saying, look, stop overthinking it. Just get some videos up there. Even if they suck, you've done it. And that's the advice I need to take myself.
One thing I love about some of the new content you've been putting out, which is like how very real it is. Like, you posted something a few weeks ago about the Studio Ghibli AI update, and you were like, "This is the canary in the coal mine." You wrote this real post about this thing, and I was like, "This is a side of you, or a side of people who write about LinkedIn and talk about LinkedIn a lot that you don't see much." Like a real human person who cares about a thing. And so I was like, I loved that. I want to see more of that stuff. Even you posted recently about a photo shoot that didn't go as, in your mind, you tell yourself the story that's going to show up and be a certain way. And it didn't go that way. And you're like, oh, I'm a real person. And sometimes I don't get to everything. And I think there's a lot of desire for that type of stuff, especially from people with audiences as big as yours, because it can almost feel too easy to get sucked into. Here's tips about the LinkedIn algorithm, or here's whatever the newest thing that you should know about building a personal brand on LinkedIn. Like all that. I hate the guru idea, but there's a category of creator that, I saw a post yesterday too. Someone said, block these creators. I was glad to see you weren't on it. I was happy for that.
I just talked to one of the creators on that list about being on that list, actually, just before the call.
I saw someone recently posted, I think Matt Barker posted about being on the list, and I was like, look, I don't take myself too seriously. I think it's a good thing. Look, being online is you're going to open yourself up to stuff, and it just is what it is. But it's good to see that side of you. That's what I said. I was like, it was a really positive experience to meet you like this and get to know you that way and go, oh, it's not just a guy talking about LinkedIn,
Yeah, I feel so conflicted is probably not the right word, but I would say I'm not in the same echelon or tier as, the top, here's how to win on LinkedIn people, for lots of reasons. But part of it, I think, is that I've never gone all in on kind of the requirements of being those people. So for those who don't know, yeah. Well, exactly. I kind of can't bring myself to do it. If anybody doesn't realize this, the way that type of creator works is they're working in conjunction with all the other LinkedIn gurus in different levels of kind of formality. There are WhatsApp groups where everybody's literally saying, here's my post, go and like it, and I'll like yours. And then a lot of them, it's more kind of informal than that, but they're constantly, supporting each other's content. And I can't bring myself to support crap content, which a lot of it is. A lot of it is faux sincere, or I don't know, it's just the same thing I've seen 100 other times, and I know that they've basically just lifted it off someone else. So I'm in this weird place where I'm like, okay, yeah, I have learned how to succeed on LinkedIn, and I sell that as a service. But, I came to LinkedIn after 20 years as an entrepreneur, or nearly, building creative businesses, a background in music. I'm a creative person, and I'll be building more businesses and doing more creative stuff. And LinkedIn is not the be all end all for me. It's this platform that I kind of found myself succeeding on to a surprising degree faster than most people do. And I kind of ran with that and went, okay, I'm going to do more of this. The first time I can remember it really kicking off was I did a post on here's how to create a carousel. And the funny thing is I had learned how to create a carousel 48 hours earlier myself. And I thought, I nearly was paying someone to do it because I was like, how the hell do you do this? Learned how to do it on Canva and then did like a step-by-step with screenshots. Here's how you do it. And it did really well. It wasn't like viral, but it was like 100,000 views. And I probably had 10,000 followers at the time. And back when the algorithm was very generous. And it was like, okay, people love that. I'll do more of it. So then I did one on how to do comments or how to set up your featured section. I probably have like 50 posts like that. And yeah, a lot of them are my greatest hits. But stuff like the Studio Ghibli kind of essay, if you want to call it that, is sort of where my heart lies. And I have this sort of dichotomy of how do you share your thoughts about stuff outside of here's how to win on LinkedIn without confusing people. And I don't have a perfect answer for it. I try and mix up, LinkedIn tips for sure, and client success stories is how I get more clients, as we all do. But then I'll do I'm trying to introduce a lot more day in the life type content, like the photo shoot that didn't work out. I'm trying to show people, I'm trying not to spend too much time talking about how to create content on LinkedIn and instead just create content on LinkedIn. It's been done to death by people whose whole existence is LinkedIn tips. They don't write about anything else. We don't know their personality. They very actively create a persona of sort of perfection when in reality, that's not their situation or anybody's situation. I want anybody reading my stuff to go, he's a normal dude. He has lots of productivity problems and normal life problems. And it just kind of, I feel like when I read a post where somebody is sharing, Erica, again, we'll use Erica, that's good shit.
It's an easy example.
That's what I want to read. I want, I want real stuff. I honestly, I've blocked all the people on that list, pretty much. Not all of them. Matt is a good friend. I think Matt shouldn't be on that list. And he's in his own category where, yes, he shares a lot of LinkedIn tips, but he shares a lot of his life, in Cyprus and how things have changed. And, he's very much the person who he is in his content is who he is on a personal level too. But, a lot of those people, I'm like, yeah, I hate that shit. I hate the cult of the celebrity LinkedIn person. And probably the worst part is the whole point of that is that they sell the dream that you too will become the next, insert their name. And you definitely won't. I promise that you won't. Maybe if you'd started in 2022 or 2020, but not now. You just won't. So it's a lie. It's deceit. And all of the kind of stuff about how great their life is marketing for that offer so that you'll pay them 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 a year. I hate that. So yeah, I'm like everybody, I think to a certain extent, I'm always trying to find my very specific niche to me. And maybe we should talk about this more, that it's sort of an endless thing. You change over time. I'll give you some examples. I'm working on a software as a SaaS business right now for the first time. Did I say software as a SaaS? Software as a service. Yeah.
I just went. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. I'm working on my first. There you go. You can tell that I'm a beginner at it. I'm working on my first SaaS, which is a stock market tool where you get an email each day saying, here are the companies you're interested in that you should buy, you should sell, you should hold. So this is obviously completely unrelated to LinkedIn, but this is my actual life. I'm an entrepreneur. I build things. Whether I'm building an album or a post or a song, it's from being a creative person, and so I want that to be my niche as much as anything. But at the same time, I recognize that why a lot of people follow me kind of in the first place is for the LinkedIn stuff. So it's a balancing act for me. And I do think too, I want to help the future Ericas of this world to succeed on LinkedIn by saying, yeah, you do actually need to write good hooks. Like that's just reality. I know it. You don't want to be a hook bro. I get it. But it's copywriting. Like this is part of the game that we're playing. You can't just show up with your incredible insights and it just works out. If you want a lot of people to see it, you're going to need to learn hooks. You're going to need to learn how to optimize your profile. So I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to work it out myself always. It's a moving target, this stuff. But I appreciate what you're saying because those two posts the one about Ghibli and the one about photography, that is my new stuff. That is what I try and write almost exclusively in terms of my newer stuff. And then with my old stuff, I retire anything that feels a bit too guru-y. I probably leaned into that too much in the past and went, great, I'm going to be the next, I'm going to be one of the big names of LinkedIn. And now I'm like, nah, I don't really want to be that. I'd rather have my own lane.
You've been an entrepreneur for almost 20 years and like the niche, finding your niche is never done either. Like you'll niche into something and it's going to naturally evolve. Like markets evolve, problems evolve. Everything about the work evolves over time, and we don't give that enough credit as part of the process. Back the clock up a bit. I'm really interested how someone who goes from writing albums, few New Zealand chart topping songs, to creating. First of all, I was enjoying researching because that song "Quicksand" is dope.
Thanks.
I was checking out some of your YouTube music videos and stuff. But like you went from that to find a band and find a DJ, organizing thousands of corporate events and weddings and private events, and then New Zealand venues and Auckland weddings. Like, how do you go from that to generating the majority, if not all, of your income through LinkedIn strategy and digital products? Like, how did you pull this off? How did you decide LinkedIn was even a place to look at, like, as you're going through all this? Like, walk me through that.
Yeah, I get asked about, why did you start on LinkedIn a lot? And I wish I had a better answer than this. For a long time, I had been wanting to find a creative outlet where I share all my lessons in kind of small business entrepreneurship. So I've built a handful of businesses to 6 figures and one business to 7 figures, which I still have. The others I've sold. And I think there are a lot of people, LinkedIn for sure, but every social media platform has an abundance of people talking about here's how you get VC, here's how you raise your round, and and it sort of assumes that you've had a perfect run in terms of where you're born, where you're educated, how rich your parents are, how much kind of personal runway you have because your dad's going to pay your rent while you get up and running. It's like, it's privilege. And I'm a middle class white man in a Western country, so it's not terrible in New Zealand. We're doing okay, and had the privilege of going to university. So I don't want to suggest that I've come from the mean streets of, I don't know. There are people with much worse starting points than me, but I like the idea of saying, even with no kind of strong business backing and family and business and so forth, here's how real people can do it, how you can start a business, and here's how I have done it. And when I started Findaband, my first business, I had absolutely no clue what the hell I was doing. This is before, this is like 2008. So I guess YouTube is only a few years old. We don't have people creating incredible libraries of here's exactly how to build a WordPress site, or here's everything you need to know about SEO. So I learned it slowly through books, through trial and error, lots of mistakes, wasted a lot of money, invested way too much with the wrong people in terms of kind of partners, designers, and so forth. Did everything wrong. And so over the years, the answer to your question is like time. It's like a lot of time, a lot of years and trying stuff and one thing leading to another. But like I started Findaband 2008. Then I had the idea for Auckland weddings because a lot of our Findaband clients were wedding clients. I thought, what if I build a wedding marketplace that is focused on the city where all of our business is for Findaband, where most of the clients are who have the money to spend on a band for their wedding or event. So I thought this would be a good SEO play. And I guess I'd learned SEO from a friend of mine, knew just enough to be dangerous. And that kind of worked out, So by that point, I built Findaband. I might have redesigned it once. So I'd gone through that process twice. Then we worked with an agency for Auckland weddings. I did that with a business partner. And the reason was he already owned the domain name Auckland Weddings. He didn't want to sell it to me. So I eventually went to him and said, he had a small site generating $500 a month or something. And I said, look, this could be much bigger. Here's my blueprint for it. It was like a Google Doc, 20 pages of here's how we'll do it. And ultimately I said, I'll fund 3/4 of this build, you fund 1/4 of it, and we'll go 50-50 on this. And we did. And it worked. So then Auckland Weddings dominated SEO in Auckland for everything if you search Auckland wedding venues, Auckland wedding photographers to this day, 15 years later, and obviously Auckland wedding bands and Auckland wedding DJs. So that was the whole plan. And then as a result of building that business, we learned that there was like 30 categories of wedding suppliers. We learned that the venues were making like $20,000 a wedding. Everybody else was making like $600. So then we built a nationwide venue site. Having already built relationships with a lot of venues, we had this starting advantage. So it was like the Airbnb of venues in New Zealand. So, that was like 6 years later. That one also was very successful. The business partner that I had started with, we had never really seen perfectly eye to eye. My vision with any business that I start is, how do I create something really high quality with a high price point, and every little detail is perfect or as close as I can get it. And that is often to my detriment. I often take way too long to launch because I want it to be so good. But when I finally do, it's really good. His ethos is more, let's just get this thing up and running and figure out the details. And I don't think that's wrong, by the way. I just think that that is a different approach to mine. So we had this conflict that would show up again and again. I would want to hire a full-time employee, pay them really well, and I would figure that they would stay for years because they were looked after. He would want to hire a part-time employee, pay them poorly, but figure this is a cheap way to solve this problem. And also I would usually let him, because we're 50% partners, bad idea, we always had to kind of agree, and I would ultimately acquiesce every time and go, okay, sure, we'll do the part-time person. I would let myself be convinced over and over of things that in hindsight, I should have stood my ground. So we fell out eventually over that. And that's why I sold my shares in that business out of New Zealand venues and out of Auckland weddings. But obviously I took all the learnings from it. And part of the deal was that I kept all the creative IP. So if I wanted to launch those businesses in other countries, I can, just not in New Zealand. That's like a very quick summary of like 10 years of my entrepreneur life. And then along the way, the whole point of starting Findaband was to fund my music career. So started in 2008 and wrote the songs for a first album, put a band together, and we went into the studio with money that I had earned from the agency, basically paid our way for that first studio album. And then that led to getting signed with a great manager and unlocking a lot of funding and stuff in New Zealand. We had one song go to number one on the rock charts in New Zealand from that album. Two songs actually go to number one. One of them was really enduring, Bullet for Your Gun. It felt like it was played every day on the rock stations in New Zealand for a while there. And I kind of thought, okay, it's going to happen.
It's pretty cool, man. Like, that's pretty cool.
We're gonna make it, but we didn't. But yeah, several years after that, about 2013, we set the goal as a band to go and record in Nashville. I can remember writing it on the whiteboard, literally writing the word Nashville in the band room. And it seemed ridiculous, It's like kind of manifestation babe stuff. But about 9 months later, we landed in Nashville and recorded our album there with an amazing producer, Toby Wright, who had worked with Ozzy Osbourne, Alice in Chains, Kiss, Slayer, Korn, all these bands, amazing bands, heaps of them, like 30 big rock bands. And, had this kind of incredible experience as a result of having started Findaband. And I guess that sort of stuff is kind of like what entrepreneurship is all about for me. It's like it unlocks stuff like that yes, you need money to do it. And you need kind of nous to do it. Like you learn skills around communication, how to email people in such a way that you ultimately get the outcome that you want. You learn that as an entrepreneur. It's like entrepreneurship for me has always been about unlocking things rather than having a Lamborghini parked in the driveway. Not that I have the option of having a Lamborghini parked in the driveway. The emphasis, I think, generally is if you achieve financial success, or everything else kind of takes care of itself. And I'm almost trying to find a way to repeatedly share with people, if you build the skills as an entrepreneur and you build a business that you love, you can build a great life. Not a rich, elitist life, but a life where you do the things you want to do.
I think more people should have this perspective on what it means to be an entrepreneur, because there's the lust of what you describe, like people leaning up against Lamborghinis and all this other dumb shit that is it's just not the reality for 99.9% of people. And even the people who I know who are extremely successful entrepreneurs, they're like, wow, I'm so blessed. That's crazy that this worked out as well as it did for as long as it did. I'm going to do everything I can to protect that. Blowing it on a Lamborghini is like the last thing on their mind. So yeah, man, I completely agree with the philosophy. But how do you do that and then decide what was the motivation to go and start sharing some stuff on LinkedIn?
I wanted to share kind of what we're talking about, this idea of like how to succeed in entrepreneurship, and I don't know, how to kind of find your lane as an entrepreneur, your superpowers, all the little details, how to create standard operating procedures or how to do SEO I guess it was sort of like how to be a generalist entrepreneur and work with specialists to create things. And I had several misfires with this. I tried to get a blog going, tried to get a podcast going more than once, did some interviews with people, which were great, went really well. But I guess because of imposter syndrome and kind of like, I would say it was largely around the fear of judgment and so forth. So imposter syndrome, none of it ever really saw the light of day. So I had a Google Drive full of blog posts. I had about 6 fully completed podcast interviews that never went live. And then years went by.
Publish them. What do you mean?
And then years went by, and I think it was kind of just time. I somehow came across Justin Welsh's course, and maybe I was just kind of like, maybe I'll give that a shot, And it honestly kind of feels like one thing led to another. I certainly had no clue what I was getting into with LinkedIn. I wasn't like lurking on LinkedIn and reading everybody's content for a year before I started posting. I kind of just showed up and started posting. I'd had a LinkedIn for 10 years, like everybody did, that I never used, but I hadn't been actively engaged. And then, my very first post was around building a small business I built during COVID that kind of paid the bills for my family while all my other stuff was shut down. All my other stuff was event related. So it like totally shut down for COVID. It was screwed. We went from having 7-figure year with Findaband to around half that during COVID. So it was a huge blow. I'm surprised we made any money, but we got through it. Early on, I started with about 1,500 connections, I guess, as you do, from years of being in business. And enough of those people started liking, commenting that I guess I was just like, oh, this feels good. Like people like this. I'll do the next one. And I guess, we were just coming out of COVID. This is early 2022. I guess I had a lot of time on my hands. And at that time, I feel like all I did was write content. That was how I kind of spent my days. And, looking back, as I think a lot of people experiences, there's a lot of junk. It's mostly junk. I was kind of really finding my feet. I feel like the writing is not good writing. I was sort of trying to be what I thought you needed to be on social media, probably be what I thought you needed to be on LinkedIn, which is like overly positive and rah-rah, And then I think somewhere along the way, I must have posted something a bit more honest and real, and people went, actually, we much prefer this, Yeah. So, as with content, you kind of take hints from your audience. You kind of read between the lines of the feedback you get on a post. Like when I post that kind of thing, people like it. And it isn't just the likes and comments. It's also the type of comments that you'll get. The Ghibli one is a good example where I really questioned if I was the person to write that. Should I say anything about it? Or should I stay in my lane? And ultimately, I thought, no, I feel strongly about this. I'm going to write it. And yeah, the response is really good. And so, yeah, I think even though it feels like this weird tangent in my career, it's actually not. Like, I really think creating a business, creating an album, creating a brand on social, they are really similar. It's a lot of grinding. It's a lot of keeping one eye on a future outcome that you really want and knowing that you're going to have to do a lot of work to get there, but also falling in love with doing the work. And then when you finally achieve the thing, that's great, but you were enjoying yourself the whole time. You were finding fulfillment in the work that you were doing. And I think for me, like with LinkedIn, with social media, that's something that I have to keep kind of coming back, recentering myself is like, it has to be fulfilling for me. So I think that's why I could never do joining the kind of pod of the guru creators and supporting content I didn't believe in. I just would not be able to sustain that. It would feel, apart from feeling inauthentic, I just literally wouldn't be able to bring myself to do it. It's like, it's lame, you know? So as a result, I haven't grown as big or as sort of influential as some, but I get to keep my integrity. I've never compromised and gone, I think this guy's stuff is crap and I know that he's not making the money he's saying, but he can help me get to 200,000 followers, which honestly, I think is a decision a lot of people make a different decision to what I made.
One thing is misguided that followers is the unlock that you're looking for. It's kind of obvious when someone is growing an account based on bullshit and when someone's growing an account based on regular, like trial and error. You can tell by the comments. You can tell by how quickly posts kind of gain traction, all of those little things. Because when you read the comments on some posts and you go, what the hell am I reading? Or when you read the comments on a post and you go, oh, normal human people have read this stuff and they had a normal human reaction to it. It's a totally different feel. And I think when you try to grow so aggressively just for the sake of growing an account, you lose that connection with the content and the craft and the audience that you're talking about, which is how you figure shit out. That's like the most valuable part about creating content, iterating ideas, is to decide, oh, people respond in a different way when I say things like this. And when you throw it into a WhatsApp chat and you get 500 people to like it immediately, you completely lose all of that.
Yeah, really. So true, man.
That's how you figure it out.
I think the problem is, unfortunately, that you and I can tell, but a lot of people can't tell the difference. And so they fall into and this is the whole goal. They fall into the trap of seeing someone whose stuff is crap, but they are part of the pod. They're doing all the pod. I can tell just by looking at the carousel cover image that 90% likelihood this person's part of the pod, because I think they have, there's one pod in particular where I think there's like a design team that is creating all the content for like dozens of people. If that's not the case, I'm like, it's weird how similar it all looks. But if I'm some CEO and I'm not very au fait with LinkedIn and I see this person getting 1,000 likes in a day and I'm getting 8, and I want to grow on LinkedIn, you can see how you'd be fooled into thinking, well, I need to pay this guy, and that's the game they're playing. Of course, the reality is when you finally work with that person, they're going to tell you, optimize your profile and write good content and you need hooks. And it's like, yeah, you do need all that stuff, but that's not going to get you to 1,000 likes in a day. That might get you to 20 if you're fortunate, right. But really what you need to do is pay to be part of the pod. And so, yeah, the pod thing has been really enduring. And yeah, I think it's important to note that it's because we are on LinkedIn a lot, we can see what it looks like, but unfortunately, a lot of people cannot tell the difference.
Well, the toxic positivity in the comments is how you know. Like if there was any question when every single person has some variation of this is amazing, then there's not an actual thought in the comments. That's the telltale sign. So you have 2 primary revenue streams right now. You have your private coaching and consulting, then you have a variety or suite of digital products. How did you, and I'm really interested in how people build their private services, because the digital products is something a lot of people aspire for, especially when they don't have a large audience for a lot of the reasons that we're talking about. But you do have a large audience, so it kind of makes a lot of logical sense to me where those products come into play. But the private consulting, how many times or how many different models did you run and try to before you kind of landed on something that you felt like worked?
Well, it's the same as with content. I constantly evolve it. I can think of a few specific points along the timeline I'll share. The very first one, I think I did 2 calls for like $500 for an hour. And I felt like it was outrageously expensive, And with those calls, I would literally get on a call with someone, no planning. We would just get on a call and I'd answer questions for an hour. And that was fine. And they were happy enough and felt like that they got something useful from it, but it wasn't very fulfilling for me. I knew that it just wasn't enough time and not enough planning on my part for them to walk away thinking, for them to have the tools to really achieve some wins, So then I changed it to, I think it was like $1,000 for 2 hours. And then it was 2,000 for 2 hours, but with a lot of pre-prep where I would create all of their profile design assets and stuff. So it went something like 500 to 1,000 to 2,000, 5,000. The 5,000 was like a month of working together, a lot of work on my part where I would create all of their branding and create a content strategy that was very specific to them. And then most recently, I've gone to 10,000 for 3 months because, amongst other things, the reason why I keep changing, like 5,000 for a month is fine. That's great. You know, I would have been happy to keep doing that, but it's still not enough time. I've been trying to figure out a way to get the success rate of people who work with me really high. I would love for like 70% of people who work with me to go, I paid them that 5,000 and now I'm making 10,000 or 20,000 a month. And I've got this unique personal brand that's real, that is unique to me, that is true to me, completely aligned with my values. So this is hard. This is hard stuff to figure this out with someone. I was having to cram it into a month. It was impossible.
And to cram it into a month, though, the limiting factor is how do you achieve that aggressive of a positive outcome in that amount of time?
So I thought, well, I have to charge more. And that will mean, you know, obviously the math is it's actually cheaper to work with me longer, but that's okay. If I work with someone for 12 weeks for 10,000, and then if 70% of the people who do that are making 10,000 plus a month as a result of that work, that's the whole point. It's a better business for me. It's a fulfilling business. It means every single person who comes out of it is saying, you should do this. It's worth it. He's the real thing. Because as you know, like all social media, and LinkedIn's no exception, is packed to the gills with people selling this big dream, and many of them failing to deliver on it spectacularly, you know, like not even getting close to what they promised on the sales page. I think I'm honestly probably guilty of the other way around, that I don't do enough hard selling up front, but then I try really hard to get everybody to success who works with me, because it's a lot of money, you know, and because I want it to be a business where everybody walks away happy. That's been like my secret, you know, like with Findaband, we go over and above for clients. And then after we've done the job with them, we get in touch and say, we would love if you could share a testimonial. And, you know, it's something like 60% of people, you know, the people that don't leave a testimonial, that's fine. But the people that do, it's like 5 stars. We only have 5-star reviews. We have like 220 of them on Google. That's what I want my consulting to be as well. It's the best possible marketing, is your business does the exact thing that it promises to do.
The proof is the most, that's where the inbound comes from. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that one, is because they're afraid to share. They feel like they're ragging versus celebrating the success of someone else. And the proof is where most of us make the majority of our money. And you would allude to that too. I want to look back a bit too. It's like, what is something you would have done differently?
I would have focused on building my email list with every post much sooner than I did. I know that in 2022, I thought the good times would never end. I thought the algorithm would always be as generous as it was. And my girlfriend was saying to me, she's a social media expert, has worked with enterprise brands and stuff. She's like, they definitely will not last forever. You should be making the most of this. You should be making hay while the sun shines and building your list. And I didn't heed that advice. So now I'm kind of making up for lost time with lots of lead magnets, with a view to building my list and then communicating with those people in a way that LinkedIn has no say over. And that will be my focus from this point. I don't really care about growing my audience any larger on LinkedIn. I care about growing my email list. I'm planning to work with Chanel from the Growth in Reverse newsletter and membership, because I think email is an essential complement for whatever your social media platform is. You know, LinkedIn is mine, but whatever it is, you want to team that up with a newsletter. That's honestly the one thing. I think I didn't make any major missteps where I went, oh, I really shouldn't have done that. I obviously didn't know what I know now, but that's the one where I probably did know that I should have done it. And for some reason I didn't. I took the easy path of just keep creating content. And I guess as well with that, I probably have done more selling on LinkedIn than I would have if I'd been building my list. I realize now that social is all about people becoming aware of you, and then you do your selling in the email list. And that way, your social content can stay very high value at all times without people feeling the jarring experience of a beloved creator turning around and saying, you need to buy my shit. You know, that's it. I still sell on LinkedIn, but much less than I used to.
It's the difference between like the discovery platform that is like a feed based thing versus the relationship platform. I've tried to start a newsletter like 5 times. And it's just not for me. That's why I do the show. That's why I do the podcast. I find it to be my preferred medium, but the sentiment is the same, which is you need a relationship based platform where people can get to know you in a different way, get closer, and you can control a little bit of distribution of what it is that what the content that they can consume. All right, man. Well, let's end here. What's next for you? I know you're building a new program that you've spent a long time putting together, but like, what's next for you? What do you want to build that you haven't built yet?
Yeah, that is next. So we've got a kind of a 3-month kind of launch window up to the course. The course is my distillation of everything I've learned about LinkedIn. And, you know, as per our conversation, I've tried to include a lot of focus on personal brand as I understand it. And that means really digging into who you are, both with your own opinions of yourself and with the help of your spouse or a good friend, asking them questions. So you get clarity around who you are in the world. What's the vibe when somebody meets you? What are you really good at that most people aren't, that you might take for granted about yourself? And so when you create all that awareness, you can build a personal brand that is true to you and really kind of hones in on your strengths, you know. So that's what the course is about. It's like, you know, let's uncover your personal brand, get really clear on your positioning, and then we create this content strategy for LinkedIn based on those things. So the difficulty with the course was, how do you take everything you need to know to succeed on the social media platform and make it into a short enough course that people will actually do it and enjoy it and get value along the way? I'm sure everybody's had the experience of buying a course that for one reason or another, you just don't finish it. You know, I have so many courses that I've barely started, let alone finished. So I was really conscious of that too. With the limited skills that I have in video, I tried to make it as engaging as possible in terms of the lesson lengths and the kind of visual aids and stuff. And so I did that. I came up with a curriculum, changed it over and over and over and over, just trying to give people what they needed and nothing more. I think I've struck a good balance with that. And then along with that, I created a lot of resources. So there's like lots of templates, you know, post frameworks, really specific stuff. Here's how you write a sales post that gets you clients, for example. Here's how you do a case study post, for example. And so, so the goal is to launch that with an initial cohort in August, hoping to get 100 people in. Feels pretty ambitious, to be honest, but anything over like 30 people will feel like a huge win. And then, you know, they'll get a great price for it. It'll be half price or something. And then check in with them and go, how could it be better? Again, it's kind of the well-worn creator path, I guess. I wrestled a lot with, you know, should I do a membership? Should I do a course? Should I do a cohort? I really like the idea of cohorts. I decided to do it after listening to the Johnny Miller interview with Jay Klaus, where he talked about his cohorts and the beauty of taking time between cohorts to refine it, keep making it better. I nearly did a membership. I did Jay's membership course, and I opted not to because I think the time to do it is when you really have your course in a place where you think, I don't think I can improve this any further. This is exactly right. So that's kind of the goal. So I've got that, and then I've got the SaaS that I'm working on. That one's a bit trickier. It's a big undertaking, and with it being a financial tool, so it's called TradeMind. And what you do is you create a watch list of like, here are the 5 companies I'm interested in watching. Let's say it's, you know, Google, Amazon, Facebook. And then each day, or Meta, each day you'll get a daily email after the market closes saying, okay, Google, it's a good time to buy Google, or it's a good time to sell Meta, or just sit tight. You know, they're still going up, so you should keep holding those stocks. I've been working on that for years now with my brilliant business partner, who's an amazing finance guy. We're hoping to launch that mid to late this year as well. And that'll be me. I don't have any business plans beyond those things. And I'm going to really like try and force myself to not start anything new. Just do that for a while, you know?
Yeah, it's easy to get really excited about the next thing and let something kind of decay. But I like that you are going for the cohort model. Erica and I, with Full Stack as a membership-based model, we, like everyone, you weigh all the pros and cons. Like, do we do just a course, or do we have it be a totally self-paced, asynchronous digital product like that? Do we have it go as a cohort where you're launching? Do you have it do as a membership where it's more like, there are pros and cons to all the models, but membership models a grind, man. So I'm excited to see this cohort come out. I think it's going to help a lot of people. I mean, knowing how much you care and know how much, like how long, I mean, even the way that you described Auckland weddings as a business, and you said, I want to work on something, I want to get it right, and I don't want to launch something before I feel like it's ready. And that's showing up in this work. So I know how long you've worked on it and how much like love and care you've put into that product. So I'm really excited to see it go live, and whatever we can do to support you, man. Like,
sounds good.
So.
Yep.
I love it too. Dude, thank you so much for coming and jamming with me. I know more people feel seen on their own route because of it. So this is
my pleasure. Thanks, Nick.
Hey, it's Nick. Thanks for listening. If you want to take part in amazing conversations like these, then you need to check out Full Stack Soulpreneur, where you'll get access to bi-weekly group coaching clinics, guest mini courses from legendary soulpreneurs like Morgan Ingram and Max Trailer, and so much more. You can join right now at fullstacksolo.com. That's fullstack, SOLO.com.